Welcome to the T-Row Show. Transmitting truth one week at a time.
Welcome to the 39th broadcast of the T-Row Show. This is your host, Keith. We got Tony and Stu here. Say hello.
Good afternoon, folks.
Hello, everyone.
I hope that our listeners down in Florida are faring well. This is post Hurricane Irma, so our best wishes go out to Florida residents.
Our that was messed up. The whole state. That was something that rarely happens, but it does. And I heard about the U.S. Virgin Islands where they say the governor ordered everybody unarmed. That was untrue. So if you're hearing disarming citizens in U.S. Virgin Islands, not true. Heard from him today. And in the order, it wasn't written that way. So whoever came out with that was lying.
Scare tactics.
Yeah, just to get everybody to buy more guns, which is good.
Yep, nothing wrong with that.
More guns, better. All right, we got a couple of things we want to cover just before we get into the meat of the program today. Heard something disturbing last night. I downloaded, it was so disturbing to me, I downloaded the video just to make sure that it didn't go anywhere. Apparently McMaster, who is a well-known General McMaster, I guess he's running the White House now. He's got a definite chip on his shoulder because wasn't he, you have a picture of him, Stu? Wasn't he passed over for a Brigadier General spot?
Yeah, and I'll pull up a screen share real quick.
All right. And the reason is he's a drunk, and he's got a big mouth. So this guy's the national security advisor. So you have a drunk as a national security advisor. Good move. If you ever want something done, put a drunk in charge. That's a joke. All right. He's got a major chip on his shoulder, and apparently he's drugging Trump. It's a slow type of buildup of a drug. He's apparently Trump, and this is coming from people that are in there, in the White House, that he's starting to slur his words around 7 o'clock at night and acting real lethargic and everything. So if this is going on, folks, someone needs to put a stop to it because you don't want a drunk in charge. If you follow what I'm saying.
That's disturbing. That's a good word for that.
Extremely disturbing. In a few minutes, we've got some silver infusion stories for you, but just wanted to cover Antifa because we covered that, I believe, last week. And here's some updates on this wonderful, just great group that are now terrorist groups. And they are worldwide, believe it or not. It's a brief history of international anti-fascism. So it's the fascist terrorists saying they're anti-fascist, which they're not. They're not anti-fascist at all. They're just fascists. They're trying to put in a new world order. We covered that last week, and trying to put in chips in you and all that fun stuff. So they have its...
very good show last week.
Yeah, it's called itsgoingdown.org, and they have Antifa there. So that if you might want to read up on that if you get a chance. And here's the deep state drugging Trump. They're putting it in his Coke. This is out there, and it's some bad stuff, folks. That needs to stop because it just needs to stop. That's all there is to it. The man, no matter what you think of him, really doesn't deserve to be attacked and done the way he's being done. as a human being, as a man, as a family man, as a father, as whatever he is. We've always talked about that. We don't really talk about much about his position, but you just don't do that to people, man. It's just not cool. Not a cool thing to do. We've also got apparently Antifa is causing problems over in France and UK, and Merkel is being called traitor of the people by the German people. So people are starting to wake up.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's a good thing. So at any rate, got a couple of silver infusions. Stu, you've been taking it for about a week. It doesn't really do. It's slow. It's not slow, but it's internally, when you're taking it internally, it does move a little bit slower, or it starts happening. Things start happening and become better while you're when you don't even know it. So go ahead. You said aches and pains. We were talking about that just a little while ago.
Yeah, that's what I've got to report. I'm in my 50s, and at that stage, you get some mileage on the body, and I've suffered. In my younger days, working as a construction guy, I fell off a roof, and I've suffered some injuries. So I've got some mileage. Is basically what I'm communicating. Nothing detrimental, but general aches and pains appear to have subsided. I'm only doing a tablespoon in the morning, tablespoon at night, with accompanied gargle before I swallow the tablespoon of silver infusion. And about a week into it, and I'm prepared to say that the effect that I'm feeling right now is the general aches and pains have subsided, quite a bit, and that's a good thing for me. It's just a nice to have those types of things go away. All my the deep joint pain and things like that. So far I'm very pleased. I don't have any crazy cuts or rashes or anything that I had to topically treat. So I've been focusing on internal. So as routine maintenance, it appears that it does its job.
Tony, didn't you say you had a guy that you sprayed on that stuff on? Cut himself?
Yeah, we had a maintenance come over and take care of some ducting, the air conditioning ducting, and he cut his finger. And so he got like a napkin. He tried to wrap it around his finger, but his cut kept bleeding. And I said, "Hey, I got this silver infusion. It's good for cuts. It's good for killing bacteria, viruses. It's good for a lot of stuff. Do you mind if I spray it on?" And he didn't even question it. He said, "Sure." And I sprayed it on his cut, and almost immediately it stopped bleeding. And by the time he left, it was, it's not healed like you would think. You would see a healed cut, but it stopped bleeding. He was able to bend his finger, and the cut wouldn't open again. So he was really impressed, and he wanted to know what it was and where he can get it. And I was telling the governor also that I didn't consider myself to have bad gums, in your teeth and gums. But I did notice that, when I do drink it, I kind of swish it around gently for a little bit. And I did notice that my gums are turning, a nice, healthy pink color. And like I said, I didn't think I had bad gums, but they were looking healthier now. So, some good stuff.
Cool. Saves you time going to the dentist.
And a lot of money.
Interesting. You can get that at Rain of the Heavens Healing Center if you'd like, .com. It's rainoftheheavenshealingcenter.com if you'd like to get it. These are all people have tried it themselves. So it's not like we're saying, hey, this works and all that, but not using it ourselves. Okay, let's get down to business. We've got a couple of some acts that were passed last week by the United States and Congress assembled. We want to explain a little bit how this affects your life. And the one I wanted to start out with was the Monetary Act. I'm going to show you the draft that we had, because I had the draft wasn't actually in the act itself. And a picture, basically states 1,000 words here. So let's go with the basics of understanding what the Monetary Legal Impossibility Act is addressing. And if you look at this graph right here, this is called what they call a balance of accounts. Okay, and they have, when you have a zero, here's a zero in the middle, you either have a +1 or a -1, then it goes down from there, +2, -2, +3, -3. That's basic balance of accounts. That's what they call it in the banking industry. And you have to have a balance of accounts. That's required by the banking industry in order to curb inflation, to help people maintain a spending power, wealth building, this kind of thing. Well, as you can see, that a lot of there's been a lot of foreclosures, and there's been a lot of controversy over foreclosures. So let's just get down to the basics so you understand what the Monetary Act does. A note is a promise to pay. It always has been. Whether you put it on a dollar, any kind of medium of exchange, money, whatever you want to call it, you put a note on there. That's a promise to pay. And I know we're going to get all these theories. We get a lot of, believe me, we get in the comments. That reminds me. In the comments, folks, if you're putting stuff and you're putting links in there that are advocating for some what we consider guru things, we're just going to take those comments down. We're not going to let those comments stay up there. And this is the reason why. If you are advocating for somebody's guru stuff or whatever, their little processes and little filling out forms and stuff, what's going to happen is if we leave those comments up, those people are going to think that the T-Rose Show says, yeah, go ahead and fill out these forms. Well, we don't advocate for any of that. And they're not going to blame the guy who put it up there. They're going to blame T-Rose Show to say, T-Rose Show said to do this. And that's not true. So when you guys put links up, especially with Miller's stuff and some other people's stuff, we're just taking them down. We delete the comments because that's what's going to happen. People are going to think that we're advocating for what Miller does or what somebody else does. And it's not good. We're not going to do that. So just remember, if you start putting that stuff up, it goes back down. We check email every day, and when we see them, we take them down. If you want to advertise somebody else's work, get your own channel. Put that stuff on your own channel so that when that stuff fails, they can blame you. They don't come after us. And that's the reason why we do that. We're not have nothing to do with that, with Miller's stuff or anybody else's stuff that they put out there. All these little processes, and if you fill out this form, it's a miracle form. It makes everything go away. It reverses this and reverses that. No, we're not involved in that. So just letting you know. Okay, so I know we're going to get a lot of comments on the FRN and the note and the banking and all this other stuff. That's fine. Just please don't put links in to somebody else's junk. If you want to make a comment, whatever. But you own your own comment. So don't try to shove it off on somebody else or just parrot somebody else's stuff.
Right.
But a note is a promise to pay. It always has been. That's what everybody uses right now. They're using Federal Reserve notes. It says it right at the top. Okay, that's a promise to pay. You cannot loan a promise to pay.
It's like loaning out an IOU.
Right. You cannot loan an IOU at interest. It doesn't work. So if a bank is loaning an IOU at interest, you cannot achieve a balance of accounts. I'll give you an example. if here's the borrower here on this graph, just so everybody knows, that's the borrower on that side. Okay, and this will be the lender over here. So if you let somebody borrow $1,000, they're going to have plus $1,000, and you're going to have minus $1,000. And these two cancel each other out, so the balance is the balance of accounts is zero. You have minus over here, plus over here on 1,000. That's zero, balance of account. Now, if you make a payment, say a $100 payment, now you have plus 900 here, and they have minus 900 here, which zeroes it out again. That's a balance of account. Well, what's been going on is that the banks are putting plus on their side, minus on your side. They reverse it. And you can't do that. That would be considered fraud, okay? So if you make another payment, another $100 payment, you're going to have plus 800, and then they're going to have minus 800, and then you have a zero again. Well, when you're paying in this. So if you put 1,000 here, this is what's happening. There never was a plus side to this. Okay, so you never were given a plus side. Everything's in the negative. So when you make a payment over here, if you say you make a payment of $1,000, okay, now you have minus 2,000. You go deeper and deeper and deeper in debt, and that's what's literally happening in the monetary system. So if you have a promise to pay 1,000, or they lend you a promise to pay 1,000, you're actually that in the hole, and every time you keep paying it, you're doubling and tripling your debt. You never come over to the plus side at all. Okay, so that's the problem that everyone's having. So we're addressing that problem, because what happens is it becomes a monetary legal impossibility. It all just amounts to theft is all it does. So we're going to just read through this. A subject matter of the act is a security instrument created under a contract that expresses or implies that a note in any form is a medium of exchange, is the medium of exchange that is being loaned, gifted, or transferred is a monetary legal impossibility. Okay, and therefore the current requirements for financial institutions to reach a balance of accounts in the books cannot be accomplished. Okay, so we can go on the definitions pretty quick. So a financial account herein is defined as monetary terms related to money, finance, and or established value with methods describing lending, banking, and contracting with contract considerations to support the lawful and or abstract mechanisms creating finance and or in an obligation and or liability between two or more parties. Basically, if you loan something, pay it back. The elements of a financial account has certain lawful elements that requires an exchange of value for the lesser or more value consideration. A contract established orally or written, which needs contract consideration and value to perform, promise, or exchange, whereby associated with to the consideration as agreed, and a limit of accrued expense or not perpetual and without cause to harm, vacant trespass into sin, vacant to merits to do wrong or intentional tort, and this just means off the mark. Sin means off the mark. Vacant or perpetual accrual, deterring ability of zero settlement balance, and the implemented politically and adversarial to force an economic trespass or slavery. All right. So financial accounts and financial obligations and financial liability are herein defined as one and the same, whereby contracts require consideration, and when failed to consider and or not offered vacant of disclosure or as adhesion or implied in contract, or when contrary to above elements of the above financial account, thereby has no legal lawful contract consideration, and or are vacant of force by misuse of elements above described, and no standing to collect or compel any people otherwise, else suffer the consequences of trespass and or human rights violations under the UDHR. Okay, the word implying a loan or financial obligation when another method to pay exists. Listen to that. Wording implying a loan or financial obligation when another method to pay exists without additional liability or accrued expense, or disguised as contract in any form, with or without consideration, has no legal lawful contract consideration. It doesn't create a legal obligation is what we're trying to say. And is vacant of force by misuse of elements above described, and no standing to collect or compel any people otherwise, else suffer the consequences of trespass and or human rights violation. And I believe it's Article 4. Slavery, that's all it is. Okay, whereas in order for financial institutions to administer honest services to the public, the loaning of a note can never be facilitated, and therefore an accurate ledger reflecting a correct balance of accounts cannot be achieved, wherein actual loan balances must be represented as negative integers within the ledger. Okay, so just for instance, Stu, if I have $1,000 and I give you $1,000, now I have a minus $1,000 and you have plus.
Correct.
That's a basic loan, folks. And now I can't write on a piece of paper a note that says I owe you $1,000, hand it to him. He doesn't have $1,000, neither did I. There's no contract because nothing was loaned. So I can't say, okay, I'll tell you what, man. I owe you $1,000, Stu. I do it right at IOU, sign it, and everything is $1,000, and you pay that back to me with interest, with 21% interest per annum. So I hand him the IOU. He goes out and says, hey, man, I borrowed $1,000. No, he didn't. It doesn't work that way. And at interest, meaning now I'm just stealing the stuff. That's what that means. So further, absent an accurate ledger of accounts representing negative integers, financial institutions are under the condition of human rights violations under Article 4 of the UDHR, and imposing a legal impossibility of a right to sue or be sued. Because you have to have a cause of action when you're suing somebody. You have to have a reason to sue them. They don't have a reason to sue them because nothing ever happened. Because you can't loan an IOU. Therefore, absent an accurate representation within the balance of accounts, this aforementioned monetary policy imposes a legal impossibility for financial institutions subject to notwithstanding to assert a legal right of security instrument and the enforcement of a legal right of the security instrument, whether in the nature of a security instrument, transfer of a legal right, gifting of a legal right, or otherwise. There was no legal right to enforce anything. Legal rights means that you have the ability to enforce a right, and it doesn't, it never happened. And yes, we're talking about your whole monetary system.
Wow, this is getting really good.
That all contracts with the wording that implies a loan currency, being a promise to pay or disguised under the term obligation, are in violation of UDHR Article 4. Further be it resolved that any and all contracts found, discovered, or written under a monetary legal impossibility are hereby canceled under the Cancellatory of Foreign Instruments Act of 2015, wherein all courts shall recognize the common law right of possession being 9/10 of the law, until all monetary legal impossibilities are hereby purged from the balance of accounts in any financial institution, thereby eradicating slavery in all of its forms under UDHR, that's Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 4. No one shall be held in slavery or servitude slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms. There's also another part of this that it's violating that is related. They're not allowing you to own property. Your right to own property is where the problem is. So another problem, let's put it that way. So when you're saying you're buying something and you never can really pay for it, you're leasing it. And if you're leasing it, that's why everybody turns out to be a tenant at the end of the day when it comes to foreclosures. So the only thing is the one who's actually leasing it to you, if they used this promissory note scheme to obtain the property in the first place, it means they never had it. Which means if they took your promissory note and deposited it in the bank and then wrote a check off of it as an IOU, they can't loan you your own IOU. It doesn't work that way. And then they'll try to be all slick and go, oh, it becomes an actual legal obligation. No, it doesn't. Okay. You can't loan somebody an IOU. You can't be loaned your own IOU. It doesn't work that way. So what they're doing is you're signing the promissory note, and they're putting it and depositing it into their account, loaning it back to you. They're loaning you your own IOU at interest, and not giving you the ability to pay it because all they have in circulations are a bunch of IOUs, which is which violates the right to own property. Okay, and this is what happens when they do that. Or can you all see that? The contract is payable in gold?
Yep, I can see it.
Wow, it switched. It was unbelievable. Okay. Zoom's never done that before. All right, holders of commercial paper and parties to contracts involving billions of dollars stipulating for payment in dollars in gold or in American gold coin or in gold coin of the United States. Hello. The difference between American gold and gold coin of the United States. Two completely different things. Okay, and this is contracts payable in gold. This was done 1933 by the Senate. The Senate of the United States has actually nothing to do with America. I'm not going to go through and read this whole boring thing. It's really bad as far as boring is concerned. And always remember when they're talking about the United States, you always notice they always go to New York. In New York, words in specie, gold and silver coin, were held not to affect the right to discharge an obligation for the payment of certain number of dollars by paying in legal tender notes. So also a bill of exchange payable in specie or its equivalent could be paid in legal tender notes called greenbacks. That was the beginning of theft. Okay, I think it's in here where it talks about the states. What ends up happening is the states end up owning all the property. Let's see what we got here. If I can find it. If I can't find it, then you're just going to have to believe me. Here it is. The ultimate ownership of all property is in the state. Individual so-called ownership is only by virtue of government, i.e. law amounting to mere user. And use must be in accordance with law and subordinate to the necessities of the state. So the people come together, they create a state, and then now your uses become subordinate to the necessities of your creation. Seriously? Can someone say that's why communism is illegal? It always has been.
Yeah, that screen's red right there.
Absolutely. So this is what's happened to you based on that, and that's what the Monetary Act came from. A lot of these perspectives. So it reverses that, is what I'm trying to say. Reverses this whole communist dynamic, which is illegal. It's not that somebody that hates communism. That's not what it is. Or anti-communist. That's not what it is either. The very thinking of a communist is illegal. It literally is. It doesn't matter which country that you go to, and it doesn't matter what laws are written. It's still illegal, no matter which way you look at it. It's unlawful, illegal, whatever, however you guys want to accept that, to think in the way they do, because the creation can never be greater than the creator, and the creation's needs can never be greater than the creator's rights. It doesn't work that way. This is a communist scam. And
says it right there.
Yeah,
that's a good find right there.
Absolutely. That came from the PAGs. They sent this over, and that's what sparked that monetary thing. And also, there was another one that was done, national currency. And the National Currency Act was 2017, due to the legal monetary impossibilities created by the United States when it comes to the subject matter of paying debts. The Continental Dollar National Legal Tender was reintroduced, and this is the reason why we brought back the Continental Dollar. Whereas the American gold is separate from United States gold, thereby foreign to each other. So what people have been trying to get the United States to do, which is owned by monarchs over in Europe, is they're trying to get them to put their gold up for your money. You see how selfish that is? And they start talking about United States this, United States that, and legal tender this, legal tender that. This is where the Americans have been at fault in the international arena. Because, number one, they did it by ignorance, and that's the United States' fault. They should have told you that there are, well, I go through here, that there are, there's a difference between a Dutch American, an English American, and an actual American. The Dutch American and English Americans are still subject to their monarchs across in Europe. They're the ones that put the United States together and started claiming power of attorney for everybody and everything else, because that's what they do. The whole guise of a monarch is power of attorney. The whole foundation of a monarch is power of attorney. He has power of attorney to speak for the people. It's forced power of attorney. You didn't vote for him, which is kind of illegal. So, and bowing before him and becoming a subject of him just means, okay, I'm not going to witness to the crime you just committed. So I'm not going to witness against you. So that's the whole premise of this. People don't realize that the United States gold and American gold is separate from each other, and they're actually two different monetary systems. So the National Currency Act was born. It says, be it resolved that the states of the Union cannot legally own property due to the fact that the states meets and bounds and seaward boundaries of its territory depend on the private ownership of the people, whether their status is resident, national, or a citizen. So when people start owning property, that property, they come together in a body politic, that property becomes the meets and bounds of that country or the state. So that's what happens. So you can't reverse that and say, oh, you can no longer own this, now the state owns it. That's called theft by deception. That's why we said the creation is never greater than the creator. It says that the Continental Dollar is hereby backed by all the minerals within the meets and bounds and seaward boundaries of the United States of America under the authority of Incun 1454.B5 and other authorities. Okay, so that everybody kept asking us, what's it backed by? What's it backed by? Well, just give us time. You got to give it time. We're not going to let everybody know everything right away, because these things have to come out, and everything is done in its due time. When it's time, it'll happen. We can't force it. Nobody else can force it. It's all done in due time. Okay?
Yep.
Says, further be it resolved that the Continental Dollar does qualify by variation of agreement, meaning that any private currency created or printed is being circulated within the metes and bounds and seaward boundaries of the United States of America, foreign entity claims notwithstanding, shall be defined and interpreted in a legal sense as being backed by the American gold and other minerals as opposed to United States gold. So we're telling the monarchs, if you're going to do business over here, it's going to be backed by our gold, so we'll make the rules. Over here, you can make the rules over there. Okay? So essentially what we're doing is we're backing any currency here with American gold. And when we said foreign entity claims notwithstanding, what this means is the Bank of New York Mellon that boasts of 28 trillion in assets, every bit of it's stolen. You don't have any standing to keep that. You got it with that illegal impossibility, the monetary legal impossibility scheme. So no, you don't own any of that. That's all stolen. When you started depositing promissory notes and writing checks off of them. And no, your little privilege and everything, no, that didn't cover that. That was theft. And there's no privilege for theft. There's nobody saying, okay, it's okay to go over and steal something. So this National Currency Act is reversing the dignity that we had was for want here in this country, back our own stuff with our own gold. Quit asking the United States to back your stuff up with their gold. It doesn't work that way. That's just being selfish. Okay? Now, further be it resolved that the Dutch and English Americans are not the same as American nationals and are foreign to each other, because they're still subjects of whatever crown they want to bow down to. And therefore, the National Currency Act of 2017 does affect their enforcement of legal rights against residents and American nationals. Due to the fact that the monetary legal impossibility was created by the foreign sovereigns of the Dutch Americans and English Americans, the War Crimes Tribunal International shall have jurisdiction to settle any claims against American gold or anything else, any other assets that we have. That means the oil here, all the natural resources, all the coal, everything that's here is backing the continental dollar. Plus nationalities, plus a country, metes and bounds. It's also an identity currency because it's national currency. If you use it, you're saying that you're an American national. It doesn't have any Illuminati seals on it. It doesn't have any deceptions in it, nothing like that. Okay, therefore, the restoration of private property claims by the people born within the metes and bounds of the United States of America fulfills the obligations of the UDHR under the right to own property, and as it pertains to the states of the Union under the law of nations. So the states of the Union, they no longer own the property. It's been transferred back to the people, and they're bound by the law of nations. So they can't come back and say, the states of the Union can't come back and say, no, we own that property. It doesn't work that way. You have to reverse that. It says, for clarity of the National Currency Act of 2017, if people are forced to use the Federal Reserve note, it's as if they are using the continental dollar. That's a private currency. So if they're forced to use it, great. You're using the continental dollar whether you're forced to use it or not. If you want to play that game, if you want to play the monopoly game. So if I'm holding a Federal Reserve note in my hand, that's a continental dollar by definition, by legal definition. Under the right to own property and UDHR 4, which is enforceable under customary international law against any entity in the world, any government in the world. Okay, and therefore nothing can be interpreted as a taxable event by foreign sovereigns within the metes and bounds and seaward boundaries of the United States of America, regardless of type of currency. So if a foreign national uses Federal Reserve note or the continental dollar, the use does not give property ownership rights under this act, wherein the Naturalization Act of 2013, as amended, would apply for those rights to be recognized. And what we're saying is that if you're a Dutch American and an English American, your sovereign does not have the right to use our currency to obtain property for him. All he can do is lease it, because we don't sell private property to foreigners. This includes all those people that were naturalized. You were naturalized as subjects of foreign kings into the United States. We can't help that. Sorry about your luck. But if you were deceived, you need to go back to the one who deceived you and start arguing with them. Don't start arguing with us, because we're just doing the right thing. Now, the authority for this act is the Department of State for the Government of the United States of America shall have enforcement authority for the National Currency Act of 2017. So, if you have a claim for property and everything else, they're going to redirect you over to the registrar to register your deed. Register your deed here, and the National Currency Act and the Monetary Legal Impossibility Act is now, it can be enforced on your deed to give you that right of property again. Just want to let everybody know about that. Okay, now here's a denial of application of communist doctrine or associations by Political and Foreign Laws Act of 2017. And we always have our enacting clauses and everything. All right, an act to limit the application of enforcement by a court, arbitrator, or administrative body of foreign laws that would impair human rights. Okay, so to provide for modification or voiding of certain contractual provisions or agreements that would result in a violation of human rights. To require any court, this is the regulations, arbitrator or administrative body to take certain actions to prevent violation of human rights. This act shall be known and may be cited as a denial of application of communist doctrine or associations by Political and Foreign Laws Act of 2017. Now, let's go back to where the state started owning property. That's a violation of human rights. So that part cannot be enforced against you under UDHR. So as used in this act, foreign laws means any law, legal code, or system of a jurisdiction outside the metes and bounds and seaward boundaries of the United States of America, including but not limited to international organizations and tribunals, and applied by that jurisdiction's courts, administrative bodies, or other formal or informal tribunals. It says the court, arbitrator, administrative agency, or other adjudicative mediation or enforcement authority shall not enforce a foreign law if doing so would violate a human right. So, if any contractual provision or agreement provides for the choice of a foreign law to govern its interpretation or the resolution of any dispute between the parties, and if the enforcement or interpretation of the contractual provision or agreement would result in violation of a basic human right, the contractual provision or agreement shall be applied as modified or amended to the extent necessary to preserve basic human rights of the parties. So, that being said, you can't have a contract for murder. That's not good. That's not enforceable. You can't have a contract to marry someone under a certain age. That would be unenforceable. It violates human rights. Okay, so everybody sees where this is going. If any contractual provision or agreement provides for the choice of venue or forum outside the metes and bounds and seaward boundaries, and if the enforcement or interpretation of the contractual provision or agreement applying that choice of venue or forum provision would result in violation of any human right guaranteed, that contractual provision or agreement shall be interpreted or construed to preserve the human rights of the person against whom it's sought. That means that if there was some contractual agreement to marry a 9-year-old girl over in another country and they come over here, that's not going to be enforced here. That's what this means. Your court will have no respect over here when it's violating human rights. Similarly, if a natural person subject to personal jurisdiction in the United States of America seeks to maintain liquidation, arbitration, agency, or similar binding proceeding within the United States of America, or if a court or of the government of the United States of America finds that granting a claim of forum non-convenience or related to claims violates or would likely lead to a violation of a human right of the non-claimant in the foreign forum with respect to the matter in dispute, the claim shall be denied. That's when you hear that stuff in the movies. Denied. That's when you hear that. Denied. Sorry, denied. All right. Any contractual provision or agreement incapable of being modified or amended to preserve the human rights of the parties pursuant to those provisions of this section is null and void. In other words, if your contract is so bad and sucks so hard, it's not gonna. Your whole contract's done, gone. See ya. If a corporation, partnership, limited liability company, business association, or other legal entity contracts to subject itself to foreign law in the jurisdiction outside of the United States of America, this act does not apply to that contract. Okay? So this act applies only to the actual and foreseeable violations of human rights of a person caused by the application of the foreign association and or of the foreign law. So, this act takes effect immediately after the date it is enacted into law. So, if your communist doctrine doesn't fit this, it's null and void. If Sharia law does not fit this, it's null and void. That's the way it works. Okay, got one more here to go. Now we've heard.
This
Do
sounds
what?
like this sounds like it plugs a lot of the holes or loopholes that they created for themselves so that they can get away with these human rights violations and war crimes.
Plugs every one of them, every stinking one of them, and it reverses what's been going on in this country. So if you're, if you don't have any faith in this government of the United States of America, you're just freaking crazy, because we're fixing things that have not been fixed in years. I mean, centuries. These schemes and everything that's going on. The people in Washington, man, are compromised big time. They just, they want to do the right thing, but they just fail every single time.
They should start helping them out.
Yeah, it will help them out because they really don't have any choice in the matter. So the Voluntary Concealed Weapons Permit Act, and we do everything voluntary here, like driver's licenses and everything else, and we have the same formula on everything that we do. We're tired of listening to the going after the concealed weapons crap from the Communist Party here. And by the way, the last act pretty much null and voids and makes it illegal to be a part of the Communist Party. We're sick and tired of listening to all this crap. And if they want to do business as Democrats, whatever. We all know you're communists, so it's not really you're not hiding anything. So we said, all right, if we want to get this done, we'll put this thing to rest. Okay? And literally, because it says Weapons Permit Act, you're going to read I'm going to read this in a minute, but you'll see that we're actually upholding your gun rights. It says, is being offered by the United States and Congress assembled for the purpose of limiting the liability of a possible accidental weapons discharge outside of the privacy area that may endanger the public at large, which means outside of your home. So you're sitting there, and you got a Barney with a freaking gun stuck under his coat, and it goes off, okay? And he shoots somebody. That's a liability that he can't cover. Insurance companies won't offer anything like that. So Barney's screwed, right? So the permit holder will receive a quiz, okay, with no less than 10 questions regarding the subject matter of human rights to qualify for the permit. Okay, and this is going to be on the Treasury website, right? So treasury.theunitedstatesofamerica1781.com.
That's right.
All right, this is going to take about a week for us to put this up, so just be patient. The terms and conditions of the permit shall serve as a document that recognizes the intangible property right to the right of self-defense. Everyone has that right. And you have the intangible property right to that right. You understand what I'm saying? So there's a difference there. There's two separate pieces of property there. You have the intangible property right to that right, and then you have the right. And the intangible property right to conceal the weapon from the public to uphold the human right to privacy and the human right of freedom from persecution that open carry creates due to the Communist Party agenda. So you start opening open carry, and everybody starts freaking out. They're going to kill us. This back in the West, everybody's going to die. You know, this kind of thing happens. So you have to. They tried to cover it with the concealed weapons permit, but when they did that, they're using that contract to take those rights away, which is what communists do. You know, don't blame them. That's just what they do. So that's like trying to, blame a dog for scratching himself. It's just what it does. So you have the human right to freedom from persecution. So we put this in here. It says the American National Union of the United States of America shall have the right to adopt this act. They have the Great Council over there, and they can adopt the act and do it. This applies to people who want to do a resident declaration, and they want a contract to do a concealed weapons carry permit. That's all it is. It says the permit holder shall enjoy the right to transfer the intangible property right to the Office of the Treasury for the government of the United States of America, and in return, the intangible property right shall be valued in the amount of 750,000 continental dollars. And what's the continental dollar backed by? Well, hello. So the surety bond shall be redeemable upon a valid claim of damages against the principal. Okay, the principal would be the permit, the guy who transferred the property. The third party holder of the bond shall be the Continental Public Bank as agent. That's in case somebody makes a claim and you don't try to conceal your bond. So they have a third party. So here's your surety bond. And this is a basic surety bond that we have. This is also what we use for the Department of Transportation. It's written correctly, the way it's supposed to be written. So anybody that comes up with a surety bond of silver specie and they don't have the proper entities in place that you're bonding the principal to, your bonds are crap. Okay, and this is a basic bond. Okay, so failure of the principal to comply with the provisions of the UDHR, which means everybody has the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, these kind of things. And the Voluntary Concealed Weapons Permit Act obligates the surety to remediation or restitution of the violations up to the amount of the surety bond. Okay, it is understood that the agreed that the surety may cancel this bond at any time in 30 days. Notice in writing to the government of the United States of America, Office of the Governor, but it is hereby expressly provided that such cancellation shall not affect any accrued liability on the bond. The term of this bond shall be 3 years, and the effective date, and may continue for 1 year from the expiration thereof by the execution of a continuation certificate by the surety or agent. Surety is the Treasury. The permit holder is the principal, and the Continental Public Bank is the agent. That's a basic national government type bond. That's what they're supposed to do. They're never supposed to hold people as surety. The trustee of the private membership association shall be the principal under this bond. I just went through this. This will be the Office of the Treasury. And then there's a be it resolved by the United States and Congress assembled. So this Weapons Permit Act, Concealed Weapons Permit Act, is legally binding, and away you go. Any guys want to talk about this a little bit?
Yep. I mean, this is, it's voluntary, but it's a great opportunity for those who want to maintain their rights. And I mean, there's a surety bond that comes with it.
Right, that covers your liability. we're also going to be doing a chain of title on it in the document. So, in other words, what we're going to be doing is you've got a gun that you want to carry concealed under a jacket or something like that. And here's the problem with most of that. And this is why they came up with a permit in the first place. A lot of them have serial numbers, but there's nothing in there as far as chain of title for the gun. Where did the gun come from? And it's not that anybody's trying to get into your private deal, okay? What we're trying to do is clear you of any liabilities. You could have a gun that's sitting in your pocket that you didn't know just murdered Mary Jane down the street. And here you've got it concealed. Now who's going to get nailed for the murder? That's what you got to watch out for. So what we're going to do is in the form you fill out, we're going to try to do a chain of title there to where did you get the gun from, and were there any claims against the serial number?
Yeah, that's an important concept, Keith, because there's so much paranoia put out in the corporate press about gun registration. It's important that the people understand that the reason you track a weapon isn't so that they can hunt you down, 4 months from now and grab you or grab the piece. It's because there might be crimes committed on that, associated with that weapon. That's gonna be a tough one for some people to overcome, I think, intellectually. But
right, if I have a gun in my my holster and it's under my jacket, I want to know that gun didn't murder anybody. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a necessary thing. It's just unfortunate that that their side uses the propaganda and badmouths registration.
Well, this is an excellent example because it also demonstrates how monumental chain of title is, especially clear chain of title. Not having a clear chain of title, not knowing where that weapon has been prior to your ownership can have, lifelong devastating effects. I mean, you could end up being accused for something that you didn't do, but because you didn't clear the chain of title, you're liable for it.
Yeah, and to build off of that, it's in my mind, you would an individual would be proud, would take a sense of pride in being able to say, yeah, I've got a chain of title complete on this weapon, excuse me, as part of overall self-reliance and personal accountability.
Right. So if you fill out the form, do your best to show where it was bought from. If it came directly from the manufacturer, wonderful, great. If it came through and you bought it in a flea market, did you talk to the guy? Then we'll have to look up the serial number to see if there's any claims on it. If there's none, we're good to go. And you can be covered there. We're just clearing the title, folks. We're just clearing any misconceptions that the gun that you have in your pocket, and you get local police come up and they say, well, you have a weapons permit. Yeah, I've got a weapons permit here, and then they go and run the serial number. Oh, this is involved in a 32-man murder here, or this was involved over here with the robberies. And where have you been, sir? You know what I mean? Where were you on this date? That kind of thing. And then it's just big, and they have every right to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And you get into this verbal storytelling thing because you can't document chain of title.
Right.
So, that's where the mindset of the gun owner has to change. You have to take pride in being a weapons owner to the point where you're capable of documenting where it came from, when it occurred, how it occurred, all that stuff. You're capable of documenting, not just storytelling, because that doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah, and with the clear chain of title, I mean, you won't have to say much. The clear chain of title will speak for itself.
Exactly.
Right, and they do have the right, whoever's investigating the crime, they would have the right to take the gun at that point, because that's evidence. It's no longer a gun or a weapon, that's evidence. And a murder trial that you may not even be a part of, but that is evidence. But because you didn't do your due diligence and figure out where that gun came from before you bought it, that's
now you're involved.
That's the way it works. Sorry, that's the way it works. Because if I was holding a gun that had killed somebody's wife or husband or daughter or son or grandfather or whoever, and it was evidence in the crime, please take it.
Absolutely.
Get the guy. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And they clear title for other things. You clear title for cars. You clear title for homes. It's a necessary thing. And again, I think the mindset, the intellectual approach has to change. It's going to take a little while. There'll be resistance to this, but it's voluntary. But I would think that my message here is for folks to consider that this is actually a very, very good thing, not a tracking and diabolical scam.
Right. Yeah. It's not to get you unarmed. It's to make sure you stay armed.
Correct. Exactly.
Okay. That's what it's all about. And it's an honorable thing to do. That's the approach that this government is taking on it, as far as a concealed weapons carry permit. And we want to make sure that you're covered in case you pull a Barney on somebody, or you're just showing off, and if the stupid thing goes off, you shoot somebody in the shoulder. You know what I mean?
Yeah, accidents happen. And it doesn't. It could be property too. It doesn't have to be a person that's involved. The gun goes off and it blows a hole in somebody's wall.
Yeah, or windshield.
Yeah, ricochet and all that stuff. Accidents happen.
Yeah, it does. So that's where we're at right there, and we want to make sure that that people have the right to own property, that all these things, and that's why we do the 10. It's at least 10 10 questions. There's going to be a little bit more there, probably, but we're going to do at least 10 questions so that human rights, you understand them, and if you violate somebody's human right with that gun, we can hold your feet to the fire. So don't do that. So they got that's the main reason. That's it's the way we're taking it. I believe there's a military guy that read that act and said, "Where do I sign?" Yeah,
I hope so, because I think it's a strong act. Personally, I think it's a very strong act.
Yeah, we have a lot of people are subscribing every day to the T Rose Show. We really do appreciate. Don't forget to subscribe to the T Rose Show. We appreciate that. And we have resident declarations happening almost every day. We haven't just during Irma. That's when it slowed down, but it goes back up again, 2 or 3, 4 a day. Keep watching the map. I'm not kidding. It's right there. And the Organization of the American National Union is coming together. The Great Council is doing a really good job. As a matter of fact, they meet every Tuesday night. That went out in a newsletter last night. So if you want to be a part of that, please do so. We would like you to be there. It's not a gangsters union, so don't worry about that. It's not one of those private unions where you got to do what the union bosses say all the time. It's a actual national union. It's your inheritance from the original union of the states. Okay, so that's what that is. And when they go to the meetings, they listen to everybody. Everybody has input. Everybody can do motions that are a part of it. You can motion the Great Council. It deals with a lot with commercial aspects. They're setting down the financial or the foundation of the American market, dealing with the continental dollar, American gold, American coal, oil, all these things that we have. Tesla stuff is great. We want that in there. We got the silver infusion. There's some other people coming in that want to work with the Rain of the Heavens Healing Center with other products that work also just as well as the silver infusion. So that's starting to come up. And we get people opening up accounts every day. So it's really doing well. Everything's going well. And it's a huge positive spirit and productive spirit going on, and with this government and with everybody that's involved with it. So if you've done a resident declaration, go over to the AmericanNationalUnion.com, join the union, get to know everybody. There's something there for you, regardless of what it is. If you want to use the we don't worry about the difference between the U.S. dollar and the continental dollar anymore. Okay, so that's over. If you're using the U.S. dollar, you're using the continental dollar. That's it on that part. So you're freed up. You can start doing whatever you want. We don't care about either one as far as the differences, or if there's any differences concerned, or creating a what do you call it? Some kind of fictional legal claim against you. It doesn't work that way. Anything else that we want to cover before we take off here and see everybody next week?
Well, I just wanted to say, man, that those 3 acts, it's great news. It's exciting, and it has, once people start realizing what they are, they're going to see how their lives are going to be affected in a positive way. So it's good news, guys. I'm glad those acts got passed.
Beautiful. And if Irma or the state of Florida needs any help, let us know. If the people jump in front for any kind of relief and trying to make their politics and Trump look bad and all that kind of stuff, don't worry about it. Your country's intact. The corporation or company, whatever crap is going on over there, it really doesn't affect the country at all. The country is all good and well. And if anybody needs any help, like the state of Florida, let us know. We'll be there. Any other states that need help, we'll be there. American National Union is ready to set up commerce and trade in all the states. They're moving towards that now. It's only been about a month and a half. They're moving fast. If you want to be a part of it, please get on the calls. The information is at AmericanNationalUnion.com.
And if you want to know more about the Continental Dollar and how you can get Continental Dollars, the physical paper currency in your hands, there's 2 websites to give you information. That's the GeneralPostExchange.com and ContinentalPublicBank.com. Be sure to visit those websites.
Okay, thanks for listening to the T-Rose Show. We'll see you next week. Say goodbye, fellas.
Good afternoon, folks.
Have a good week, everyone.